The following program is being brought to you on the VoiceAmerica Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive with Dr. Rebecca Risk. Do you ever feel that even though nothing seems seriously wrong and you pass all the medical tests, that you still feel that your health, pain, and fatigue are completely out of control? It doesn't have to be that way. Listen to the tips and suggestions given on our program today and take back control of your health. Now, here is Dr. Rebecca Risk.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Falling Through the Cracks. Today, we're speaking with Alexis Marie Chute. She is an award-winning writer, artist, and filmmaker, and has set herself apart for her bereavement advocacy. Today, we're discussing her book, Expecting Sunshine, A Journey of Grief, Healing, and Pregnancy After Loss. So, Alexis Marie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So, what inspired you to write this book?
That is a big question, and it really started back quite a few years ago. I had one normal, healthy pregnancy and had a healthy little toddler running around named Hannah. And in my pregnancy that followed, it was one of those knock you off your feet, earth-altering moments where in that pregnancy the doctor phoned and said, there's something wrong with your baby's heartbeat. And it was world-altering, right? And so in that moment, I think the seed for Expecting Sunshine, the memoir, was planted, although it wasn't until maybe a year after Zachary passed away that I actually started to write the book when I realized I was pregnant again. So it's such a family story that shows the evolution of personhood, of what it was like to be a mother and a woman and trying to grapple with grief and loss in a situation where I felt incredibly helpless. So my motivation to write the book at the beginning was just to tell the beautiful story of Zachary's life, which was so short, but it has grown into something that I really hope will change the culture around grief and healing.
Well, I agree with you. I think that talking about grief or any negative emotion really is very taboo. So I can imagine that was difficult for you to go through and probably made you feel very lonely because people don't talk about it a lot.
Absolutely.
So let's just go back a little bit. Can you tell us, how you met your husband and what your marriage was like?
Yeah, so we met through mutual friends. One of my closest friends, her husband or boyfriend at that time, invited one of his friends from grade 2. They'd been friends since, like they were 6 years old kind of thing. And so we met at a birthday party, and then from there we entered same social groups and played sports together. And it was this kind of a natural friendship that grew into an amazing love. And I do think that we were very, youthful, idealistic in our marriage pre-loss. And I think that, everybody who's in that stage, you don't know anything else, right?
Yeah.
Until you've had this monumental, life-changing situation. And then it shows the strength of a marriage, what the bond is really like.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you had your daughter, Hannah, before Zachary. Can you tell us what she's like?
Hannah is a spirited, she's the cutest, amazing girl ever. She knows her mind. If she doesn't want to do something, she will fight you tooth and nail. She's so determined. And I from the moment she was born, she's been a light of joy in my life. And I think that if it wasn't for her, what came afterwards for us, it would have been almost unbearable. Yeah.
Yeah. So how old was Hannah when you got pregnant again?
Oh my goodness. I think she was only like 4 months old or something. She was such a great baby. So we were like, oh, this parenting thing is easy. I don't know what we're talking about. Let's do this again. And yeah, so we got pregnant pretty quickly. Don't quote me on the math, but I know that they were going to be 13 months apart. So they were going to be pretty close. Had everything gone to plan. Yeah, and I'd always wanted to have my kids close together. That was sort of the dream.
Yeah, so they could be friends and close. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get to do the diaper stage together. Like you get it all out of the way. You don't have long years of sleepless nights.
And what was the beginning of that pregnancy with Zachary like?
The beginning, I would say the first 20-plus weeks were just as blissfully naive as they had been with Hannah. We just didn't expect anything to go wrong. And I think that's something that in our culture we really believe at our core that we have control over every facet of our life. And that's what we kind of felt like. We're like, okay, well, we want to have another baby, so let's go get pregnant, and that happens. And then, all right, so we're planning for, the school, and this is what our future is going to look like, our family trips and our careers. And then when we got the news, it was about 25 weeks into my pregnancy with Zachary, that things weren't going as planned, and there was a huge problem. It just threw us completely off.
Yeah, so what is baby before birth?
So that's just that is sort of like a pseudonym for another company whose identity I'm keeping private. But baby before birth is there's all these kind of places all over, and every city has multiple of them. It's basically a 3D ultrasound where you go and you just go for fun, and you get you leave there with kind of like images where you can almost see like the shape of the baby's face. So instead of being a 2D ultrasound where it's just black and white and you can make out like the bone structure only, this kind of you can actually see like the curve of the nose and the cheeks and everything. It's really cool technology.
So what happened after your visit there with Zachary?
Yeah, so I went with Hannah to baby before birth. It was great. We got pictures. I went again with Zachary, and we left, and then I had a prenatal appointment a few days later, and the doctor said, yeah, there's something wrong with your baby's heart, and we're going to send you for more testing. And I was just so taken back because these 3D ultrasound clinics, they're mainly for fun. They're for parents to kind of get these early pictures, so it's not diagnostic in any way. So from there, after that doctor's appointment, we went to actual medical diagnostic ultrasound facilities, and that's when they found the really large tumor around Zachary's heart, and they found other small little tumors throughout his body. And we started the daily trek to the hospital, to their high-risk facilities, seeing all kinds of specialists and pediatric cardiologists and getting fetal echoes, which is ultrasounds of just the chambers of the heart, all in an effort to try to see if we could save our baby.
So what was Zachary's diagnosis?
So they figured out shortly after the tumors were recognized that he had tuberous sclerosis complex, which basically means, so in all of us we have a gene that prevents tumors from growing, and in him that gene was altered sometime after conception, and lots of people can live with this disease. That's the really heartbreaking thing for us is, but the unfortunate part was that just the tumor around Zachary's heart was so big and so dense that he basically was experiencing heart failure in the womb, and doctors predicted that he was going to be stillborn. He wasn't, actually. That's one of the miraculous gifts of our experience, he did hold on, and he was born alive at 30 weeks gestation, and he moved a tiny bit in my arms, and he never opened his eyes. He never screamed or cried, like the beautiful sound of a newborn entering the world. But we had just a few minutes. So that was precious to me.
Yeah. So what was that few minutes like for you?
I think it was different because we did know that he wouldn't live. Like the tumor, like when we did ultrasounds and fetal echocardiograms of his heart, it was almost like you couldn't even recognize it as a heart. Like the tumor, it was so crushing his little 4 chambers that it looked like a white mass in the ultrasound images. So I think that we had sort of mentally prepared ourselves. We had, what was it, like 5.5, 6 weeks to kind of come to terms that we were not going to be bringing our baby home. And that really transformed our mental state in those moments. So we kissed our baby, my husband and I, and we held him skin to skin, and we rocked him and sang to him. And my husband, Aaron, took Zachary to the window at the hospital and pulled back the blinds and held him up. And even though he couldn't see, he didn't have his eyes open, but my husband said, like, this is the world. And I'll never forget that moment. And I just feel that those few moments we had, they just moved so slowly. And it was amazing to be able to be present. In our culture, we're so busy and we're talking to one person, but we're thinking about, what we have to do later that day. We're on social media and everything's just busy, 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 go, go, go. And I really feel like those were some of the most pure, slow, savory moments of my life that I'll never forget. And even though it was heartbreaking and we cried and cried, a baby's life is so precious, even if it's, only as long as it lasts in the womb, or for us a few moments out in the world. It was really a powerful time.
So how long did you have with Zachary?
So we gave birth to him. Well, I guess I gave birth to him. My husband didn't do that.
Your husband was there.
Yeah, exactly. So we were together with him for the day. I can't remember. I'm terrible with numbers. That's why I wrote it down in the book. I have the numbers there. I think he was born at, sometime in the morning. I think it was like 9-ish. And then the funeral home was scheduled to pick him up at 5, and they didn't show up till about 7:15 or something like that. And so we did have the day, even though he had passed, like my husband and the nurse, while I was resting, they made handprints and footprints, and I got to hold the baby, and I had Hannah and all of our parents came and visited, and everybody got to hold him. We have some really precious pictures of Hannah and Zachary together, and she feels very proud, like, I got to meet my brother. We are very open in our family about talking about loss. And then we had a Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep photographer. It's an amazing organization. They send out, at no cost to the family, they send out a volunteer photographer to come and take pictures. And, those, apart from the few we took on our phones and our, little camera we had, those pictures are the only, real legacy we'll have of remembering what Zachary looked like. So we did those little things like that. And then when it came to be evening, it just gives me the shivers. This creeps me out even now, but we had to give our baby to the funeral home worker, and he took Zachary for his first car ride. And instead of going home, it was to the funeral home, to the mortuary. So it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. We are going to take a quick break. We're talking today with Alexis Marie Chute. She's the author of Expecting Sunshine, A Journey of Grief, Healing, and Pregnancy After Loss. We'll be back shortly.
your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
We're making it easier to listen to the Voice America Talk Radio Network live wherever you go on iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android. Download it from the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
What causes us to be sick? We're not talking about the actual illness or the scientific cause of illnesses. We're talking about your body and health. Listen for the healing whisper of return to peace. Each week, host Dr. Marianne Chase shows you how to listen to your heart to identify poor health, stress, and disease. You'll learn how to heal energetically and spiritually, as well as physically. It's time to depend less on the drugs and more on the heart. The Healing Whisper airs live every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Health and Wellness.
These days, everyone is looking for information on staying young, healthy, and fit. The Voice America Health and Wellness Network is here to help you on your quest to better health and a better you. We talk about everything from diet, fitness, and aging to substance abuse, personal growth, mental health, and much more. Learn from our experts who cover health and wellness from traditional and holistic perspectives. Tune in to the Voice America Health and Wellness Network. Healthy living starts here.
You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Falling Through the Cracks with your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. To reach the program today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email directly to Dr. Risk. The email address is anantacalgary@gmail.com. Now, back to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Falling Through the Cracks. Today, we're talking to Alexis Marie Chute. She's the author of Expecting Sunshine, A Journey of Grief, Healing, and Pregnancy After Loss. So, Alexis Marie, after Zachary passed away, what was your response to that in the days or weeks after?
So it's kind of funny. I find it ironic. So because we did know leading up to his passing that we would only have a few minutes with him, I really felt comfortable with my grief and everything in those moments. However, once we got home and sort of life started up again, I couldn't handle the grief. I found it too suffocating, and it was almost like I couldn't cope with it. I couldn't think about it, and so I basically dove into what I called my year of distraction, where I did everything but grieve. And so I worked, like crazy hours, evenings and weekends if I could. I was also taking care of Hannah, who at that point just passed her first birthday. So she was an active toddler, and I took her to class after class at the YMCA and at the library. And I just sort of filled every ounce of time with distraction. So that was my year of distraction. And when I write that down, it's in capitals too, because it was such a an inward choice to not focus on it. I just felt like I was inside. I was imploding, exploding, like everything. It was just this complete inner identity confusion. And as a mother, I felt completely inept. As a woman, our one job that our body should know how to do all on its own is to grow a healthy baby and welcome that child into the world. At least that was my perception. And so I felt like this deep failure right to the core of who I was, that I couldn't protect my baby. And we did 9 months of genetic testing during that time as well to see, was it something with Aaron or I? And it wasn't. It was a random mutation of that gene sometime after conception. But still, that didn't quench the deep hunger in me to know, why did this happen to my baby? Why did this happen to me and my family? What could I have done differently? And those left logic brain questions, I had no answer for. And so I ran. I ran from the grief during that first year after Zachary's death.
So did you ever find a conclusion to those questions?
when I got pregnant again after losing Zachary, like after we realized that the genetic complication wasn't something inherent from Aaron or I, we did start to try again. And, after, I think it was about, 5 or 6 weeks after, I found out I was pregnant and was embarking on this new journey, it was only at that time that I realized, holy cow, if I don't deal with these feelings of grief, I'm going to carry them in a really destructive, secret way for the rest of my life. And inwardly, it's going to kind of eat me alive, right? So it was in that time that I started to write and I started to make art. And it's funny because I'm a visual artist and a writer by profession and passion. But in that year of distraction afterwards, I couldn't be creative and I avoided art. I did commercial photography, but, it's projects for other people, so I didn't have to, tap into my own inner wellspring of creativity. But it was in this decision that, holy cow, I need to heal. I need to, try to make some kind of peace with those why questions before my next child was born. Knock on wood. I was terrified of having another baby that didn't live. That really started me on this journey of finding and using art as a creative tool to both experience and express my grief. And so, I am a painter and photographer by profession, and those are the things that I love, and I'm trained in those areas. But I actually started to do wood sculpture, which was so outside the realm of anything I'd ever done before. And it just began as, sitting down and just starting to glue tiny little pieces of wood together. And they grew taller and taller, and it really opened up the right side of my brain to subconsciously deal with so many of these why questions. And how that works is the right side of our brain, it's the more creative, intuitive, experimental, abstract thinking, creative problem-solving kind of processes, right? And so in that, I found I didn't necessarily need answers to those why questions. I could understand that my experience happened in a more abstract way and accept it and make peace with it and those kind of terms. And so now, as a human being living this life, I really feel I have a deeper appreciation for the mystery and the mystery of life, the things that we can't explain, and accepting those as a beautiful cyclical part of life. We live and we die. It's this cycle of life, and it's not something to be feared, but it's something to be accepted and celebrated and talked about. I think that what I'm really hoping with Expecting Sunshine, my book, is that people will start to talk about these things. I think that when we keep death and grief in the shadows, in the secret, that's where it becomes this painful, destructive thing in people's lives. And then that's why it's awkward when, for example, I lost my baby and people didn't know what to say to me. And so I did feel incredibly isolated. And I see that now. And so I don't want anyone else to feel those feelings. So yeah, that's my long answer to your question.
No, that's okay. I think you're right about that. Having had some loss in my life, I know it's people are. I guess they're either afraid to say something, and you touch on that in your book, or they just don't know what to say, so they don't say anything, and. They don't want to say the wrong thing, I guess. And I think that can leave you feeling really isolated when, it's this taboo thing, but it's this huge thing for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I'm really hoping that people will, realize that they don't have to have the right answers, and what they say doesn't have to be the right thing. Even just saying, I am so sorry for your loss, that can just mean the world to somebody. And sometimes saying nothing, just being present, can, I don't know, show the greatest amount of support and love.
Yeah. What was your husband's response to all of this?
So again, like in the time that was leading up to and at Zachary's passing, we were so on the same page in the feelings of helplessness and supporting each other. But it was really in the time afterwards where he sort of reverted to how he was brought up, which is, you know, a sort of an avoidance of talking about difficult subject matter. You know, he comes from a family of, you know, all boys, and I don't think they really talked about their feelings a whole lot. And it was almost like he just distanced himself and avoided the topic. And he coached volleyball at the school where he taught, and so he was up before Hannah and I were up, and he was out the door, and he didn't get home till 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night sometimes, and he would, you know, sit down and tell me about his day and tell me about the volleyball game. And I just felt so like he didn't even see me. I felt like he didn't see me for many years. And at the time, I could not understand where he was coming from. I was like, our baby just died. How are you, like, back to work so quickly and just carrying on as if nothing happened? Yeah, it was really hard. We struggled for many, many years.
Well, it sounds like that was a year of distraction for him as well.
Oh my goodness, you're the first person that said that, and I've never thought about it that way.
Oh, really? Yeah, he was doing the same thing as you. He was working long hours and trying to avoid, you know, his own thoughts and feelings, I would guess. He would know better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I never thought about it that way. One funny difference was I still wanted to talk, and he didn't want to talk about it. But yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you, Dr. Rebecca.
Hey, anything I could do for you. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's hard for everybody to deal with emotions. We're not really in our society taught that it's okay to feel these bad things, you know. And my grandma used to say, even though I loved her very much, that if you don't have anything nice to say or anything positive to say, then you just pretend. And so you tell people you're doing fine because people don't want to hear it. And, you know, she's right about that. People don't want you as soon as you see them to say, oh, well, you know, everything sucks. My baby died or whatever. Right. So I think it makes it more difficult because you know, we're probably feeling like, I would guess, that you would know better, that you have to kind of put on this face to communicate with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I went through many phases, and one of those being even strangers at the grocery store. It's like, oh, how many kids do you have? Oh, I have, you know, like this was when I was like pregnant again, and so I would have my big round belly, and they'd be like, oh, this is your, you know, second baby, you're so excited. And I'd be like, no. Like, this is my third baby. And I would creep people out, you know what I mean? Because they're not expecting that kind of response. And then I did have, you know, stages where I would say, oh, no, this is how many kids I have. But Hannah, as she grew up, because we've been very open with talking with Hannah, she would say, oh, wait, Mom, no, you're forgetting Zachary in that number. You actually have this number of kids. And so I've kind of gone through stages where I've been open and not open to varying degrees. But I think in terms of parenting, Hannah and our subsequent children, I would say that one of the most healthy healing acts that we did, and at the time I don't think it was super intentional, but we have talked with our kids about what happened to our family and what happened with Zachary. And I really feel that the beauty of that act, like I said, it was not intentional at the time, but what it has become now, I think is really helpful, is our kids now are very comfortable with death and with loss. And I kind of feel like that's, you know, where our society needs to get to is now, like, our living kids, they talk about Zachary like, you know, it's no big deal. He's a part of our family. He lives in our hearts. That's what we say. And, you know, if like somebody else passes or we hear upsetting news, the way that they handle it right now it's beautiful. It's so, like I said earlier, like accepting of the mystery of life, and that bad things can happen, but we're still together, and even the bonds of family can never be broken through death. It's like they understand this in this little childlike way because we've been open with them. So I really feel that, this is obviously my perspective, but I'd love for more families to be open. And then when tough stuff does happen, which life always throws us tough things, we don't expect it. We don't know when it's going to happen, but then we can be prepared and we can handle it in a healthy way instead of like, oh my gosh, someone I know just died and our entire galaxy is thrown off, which was my experience. I really had zero experience with death up to that time with Zach, and it destroyed me. And so I think that if we can start talking about these things in an authentic, genuine way, where death is not something to be feared, but made peace with in our own hearts and accepted as a beautiful part of life, then we won't have thousands and thousands of therapy, bills piled up after, right? Because we can, as a culture, accept and celebrate life instead of fear the end of it.
I agree with you, and I think what you've done with your children is very beautiful and very brave, because it must have been very difficult in the beginning to have those conversations with especially Hannah, who was around at the time, and just to let her know what was going on when you didn't quite understand as well.
Well, I think that at the time, I think from my experience, it wasn't necessarily hard at the beginning because I was a wreck, and she knew I was pregnant, and she was expecting this baby. And so she was kind of like, right from the beginning, we were talking about it. I can see how if people wait, like I have a close friend, and he and his wife had a loss. And through interacting with, with them about my book and the documentary, he's like, oh, maybe we should tell, he's saying this to his wife in front of me, maybe we should tell our older kids that we've had this loss. And I think absolutely yes, it's a great, really important thing to do. But I think that's where it can become a harder conversation when it does come out of the blue that, back X number of years ago, you had a little sibling that passed away. Because, from that point, they don't have that in their mental framework. Whereas I think if we want to change the conversation of grief as a culture, it needs to be spoken about from the beginning, where kids can incorporate this into their understanding of life in the world as they're getting older. I think that's where it needs to start, ideally.
I definitely agree with you. We're talking today with Alexis Marie Chute. She's the author of the book Expecting Sunshine, A Journey of Grief, Healing, and Pregnancy After Loss. So we'll be back shortly.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit Facebook.com/Voice America.
If you have a loved one that is undergoing treatment for substance abuse or mental illness, you owe it to them and yourself to tune in to 1 Hour at a Time with host Mary Woods. This compassionate and educational talk show will help you help those that you love by better understanding their condition and their personal recovery process. Tune in every Monday at 12 noon Pacific Time to 1 Hour at a Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness channel. Recovery begins this hour.
These days, everyone is looking for information on staying young, healthy, and fit. The Voice America Health and Wellness Network is here to help you on your quest to better health and a better you. We talk about everything from diet, fitness, and aging to substance abuse, personal growth, mental health, and much more. Learn from our experts who cover health and wellness from traditional and holistic perspectives. Tune in to the Voice America Health and Wellness Network. Healthy living starts here.
Real life solutions. Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Falling Through the Cracks with your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. To reach the program today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email directly to Dr. Risk. The email address is anantacalgary@gmail.com. Now, back to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Falling Through the Cracks. Today, we're talking with Alexis Marie Chute. She is the author of Expecting Sunshine, A Journey of Grief, Healing, and Pregnancy After Loss. So, Alexis Marie, when you got pregnant again after losing Zachary, how did you feel?
My first feeling was elation and joy, and like the puzzle pieces were aligning again. But it didn't take that long, really, for me to get back to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have another baby. And now I'm not naive. I have lived through the worst case scenario. I've been the statistic on loss, and this is going to be the hardest, longest 9 months of my life.
So what, what was going through your head? I mean, you lost Zachary, and it wasn't expected that he was going. You were told he was healthy. So, what were you experiencing?
So, with my subsequent pregnancy, it was almost like I flipped to the opposite extreme. I couldn't imagine giving birth to a healthy baby, even though I had Hannah and she was healthy in her pregnancy. My pregnancy with her was normal and progressed well, and her delivery was good. She was, all aspects of that experience were positive. I couldn't shake my last experience. It became my frame of reference moving into my third pregnancy, and I just couldn't imagine even hearing a baby cry, like that first cry and scream after it enters the world. It's cold, and the baby's like, where am I? I couldn't even conjure that sound or that feeling. I couldn't even feel optimistic that this next child was going to live. And so that's what my book is about, is trying to cope and find the hope and the inner visualization of welcoming a baby. And it was a really rough journey. And that's what I hope that my book will be. It's sort of like a companion for others who have lost any kind of person of any relation, not only a baby. It's really like a journey of self-discovery and learning how to grieve in this grieving avoiding culture, and what options are out there for healing. I hope that people will be able to pick up my book and say, okay, like, this is what she tried and it didn't work, and this is what she tried and it did work, and maybe I feel the same way as her on this, and maybe I feel a different way, and that they can be sort of a sojourner with me as they read the book. It's not a prescriptive, like, I grieve this way and this is how you should heal based on my experience. It's not like that at all. I really am trying to open people up to the conversation and share the most vulnerable, raw feelings. Like, I've had some people read the book and they're just like, oh my gosh, these are the secret feelings and thoughts that I've experienced, but I've never told anyone. And I think that people who even haven't lost a child or lost someone they loved, picking up Expecting Sunshine is going to shine a light, in their understanding, so that if they know someone who's lost a loved one, it's not going to be a question of, I have no idea what this person is going through. They'll be able to have insight and maybe have, more helpful things to say. Like, I had one really well-meaning person say to me, oh, yeah, I just lost my dog, and so I feel your pain, is what this person was expressing to me. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, internally I was like, this does not compute. I've had dogs, I've had beloved, family pets for 15 years. And when that dog died, like, I still remember that day vividly, but it's totally different, right? And so I'm really hoping that people will if they've lost someone, feel consoled, feel validated in their feelings, feel permission to express their grief and be messy in their grief, however it looks, to be authentic and to live it out, because suppressed grief is not good, not healthy. It becomes an ugly monster inside. And then I do hope that other people will feel empowered to support and give love and care in a really healthy and helpful way.
So what would have been the right thing that would have given you some comfort for somebody to say or do for you?
Well, I do think that there was like a group of people that supported me in a really helpful way, and that was the moms group I met through having Hannah. And what they did was they organized one person from the group to bring a meal every day for 2 weeks. And they did that leading up to Zachary's birth, and then they did that, in the week following his passing. And at the time, I don't think I would have necessarily said, "Oh my gosh, I need food," but just that gesture alone, I think that our family would have ordered pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We just didn't have the mental or physical energy to cook. So I would say that people supporting in practical ways like that was hugely helpful. And I think that what I kind of missed at the time was someone just to walk the journey with me. And what that looks like is, just being present and saying hey, can I just come over and hang out? And we don't even have to talk. We can just let the toddlers play on the floor, or we can watch a movie, or we can sit and draw together. I think I just needed companionship at that time. And so I didn't feel like I got that from my husband. And I think people, because of being scared of what to say, it's like oh my gosh, I need the right words. It's almost like they were scared to journey with me in that way. And so, yeah, just companionship, I think, would really make the world of difference for so many people.
But I think you've definitely hit the nail on the head there. When I went through a process with a family member being ill and eventually dying, a lot of people thought we were just busy. And so instead of reaching out to us, they're like, "Well, you were busy." And, we were eating, fast food or just grabbing something like you said you would have done if someone hadn't helped you. So I think those are definitely good things. And not deciding if somebody is busy for them and reaching out to them so that they have the support that they need.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think we all assume everyone is busy, right? And how many of us are, we sit home on Friday night and we're just like, oh, why isn't anybody reaching out to us when we're all thinking that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially out doing stuff, but it's companionship, I think, is what we're missing. We're hyper connected in our culture with social networking and all this digital stuff, but just being present, a human, flesh to flesh, right? We're present in one way that we can give. Yeah,
exactly. So in your pregnancy after Zachary, was there a point where you felt comfortable with being pregnant and that it was going to be okay?
I work towards that point in my book. I don't know if I really felt at ease at any point until I was in the hospital room holding my baby who was moving and kicking and just starting to open his eyes and giving the first newborn cries. I don't think it was until that moment where I could really take that deep breath and be at peace. I have a wise counselor, a bereavement counselor, once told me that you won't feel that peace and contentment until you see the whites of your living baby's eyes. And really, that's where it was for me. If people read the book, which I hope they do, you'll see the progression to, the end of the pregnancy where I was starting to surrender to the things that I could not control and learning to hope and to love again, learning to like relearning to visualize the good, because for so long, like I erected these walls of fear, and where I could only imagine bad things happening, because then I felt I would be protected because nothing would surprise me. And really, by expecting the worst, it was impossible to hope for the best. And so my book is like, all these little learning experiences and journeys and finding myself again and the beauty of what that is like. But still, I could not fully surrender to hope until I held my next child. And it was a beautiful healing experience. No child will replace another child, but that experience of new life coming out of the darkness of loss and sorrow, that experience was beautiful and redemptive.
So if anybody's going through a similar situation, what advice would you have for them?
I would say that feel whatever you're feeling, and don't think that you have to grieve a certain way or that it should take a certain amount of time. Often people think, once the funeral or memorial is over, get back to life, get back to work, get back into the rhythm of your schedule. But take the time you need. It may take some people significantly longer than others, and that is okay. It is going to look different from person to person. And I would really say that we need to not compare hardships. I think it's amazing when people try to empathize, but we should not say I feel this way and because of my experience, and so I totally understand what you're feeling. I think that if we try to just be graceful and kind with ourselves, not rush ourselves in our grief, that will set up the parameters for the time of mourning to unfold how it is meant to unfold, instead of it being like, okay, now you're supposed to feel, the 5 stages of grief, right? Like I experienced 505 stages of grief, and it was a roller coaster. Some days were great, some days were hell. And so I think that when we give ourselves permission, and we give permission to the people in our life for them to be up and them to be down and them to be confused other days, that's really the best gift we can give to ourselves and to others. And I would really recommend people try creative exercises, even as simple as buying a journal and just getting out all your rage and anger at life and God and why did this happen to me. Just get it all out. Express yourself in some healthy way, because if you bottle it all up, it's going to become a time bomb, and it's eventually going to come out one way or another.
I definitely agree with you. Before we close the show, is there any way somebody can get a hold of you or find your book?
Yeah, so you can find my book. It's basically available wherever books are sold. And right now I have a special, so people who order it before April 18th, which is the actual formal release date, for people who pre-order, from anywhere like Amazon, or I have my online store, which is shop.alexismariechute.com. So my name. You can buy it there or anywhere. Order it from your local indie bookstore. So people who pre-order, they can email bonus@alexismariechute.com, and Chute is spelled CHUTE.com. I'm going to email them this special reading bonus. So what I did was I was challenged by one of my professors in my grad program to rewrite one of the chapters from my book from my husband's perspective. This woman should be a therapist instead of being a writing instructor, because that was, I would have to say, was one of the most healing, if not the most healing acts and catalyst for my husband and I to rebuild our marriage. We started talking, and at that point, I really didn't want to see things from his perspective. I was deeply hurt by how he went back to work quickly after our loss, and my book, it's definitely from my perspective. And so I rewrote one chapter, one intense chapter, as seen through his eyes. And wow, so he helped me. He told me what he was thinking and feeling. That was really the beginning of our change from lack of communication to actually seeking to understand each other. So people who email bonus@alexismariechute.com with their proof of purchase of the pre-order, I'm going to email that chapter. So it gets a 10-page PDF document, and it's wildly interesting. It still gives me shivers when I read it because I'm like, oh my gosh, male grief. Like, I didn't think my husband was grieving. I thought he was, off moving on, right? Everybody tells you to move on, but his experience through his eyes, it is bone chilling. And I really hope that people will take advantage of this because it's, it helped save our marriage. It made a huge difference. So, and so people can go on to expectingsunshine.com to learn more about the book and also the documentary film. Right now, we're editing, but it's been about 2.5-3 year process where we started filming. We followed my most recent pregnancy with my second rainbow baby, and we interviewed other bereaved families. We interviewed experts in grief, therapists, doctors, nurses, and really are trying to unearth the experience. And it's really fascinating, too, because so many people have differing experiences from my own. But really, with this documentary, we try to share men, women's perspectives, different kinds of losses, miscarriage, stillbirth, trying to open the discussion and leave people with something that
well, thank you so much for bringing this information forward. I think it's going to start a great conversation for people, and I want to thank you today for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So today we were talking with Alexis Marie Chute. She is the author of Expecting Sunshine, The Truth About Pregnancy After Loss. And so thank you today for joining me, and be sure to make today a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive. Please join Dr. Rebecca Risk again next Monday at noon Eastern Time and 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness channel. We'll talk more next week.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views